Now, with the country having successfully weathered the COVID storm for now, the after effects of this pandemic are taking a toll on people's emotional and mental well-being, leading to a host of other health issues. To chat to us more about this post-traumatic stress and the impact it's having is Charlotte Jean, a nutritional therapist, pregnancy specialist, Pilates instructor and founder of Better for Life Therapy Centre. She'll also be sharing advice on how to manage this phenomenon. Well, Charlotte, thank you so much for joining us in studio. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you, Michael.
Now, post-traumatic stress, I think we all know that there are various degrees and levels and factors that cause it. But COVID-19 has certainly been one that was very unexpected. What are you seeing in terms of post-traumatic stress due to COVID?
So we're seeing a lot of our clients experiencing strange symptoms that they're not linking to stress. So including overeating. Most people during the last 5 to 6 months put on average 5 kilograms of weight, which is very much linked to your post-traumatic stress disorder. Then there's sleepless nights, insomnia, lowered immune system, the frantic thoughts and the cyclical thinking that you can't sort of break out of, and then that unfortunate result of depression. So our suicide levels are very, very high, and they have actually increased during the last 6 months.
I think there's so much that's been done to avoid catching the virus, but then when you look at the impact, the broader impact, it is quite astounding to see what people have been experiencing. And I think for people who may have not felt the issues and the challenges, it's maybe difficult to understand. What sort of sensitivities are you seeing in terms of that depression and people's ability to cope, especially also now coming back to work? How are people around the people who are suffering from post-traumatic stress coping with those people?
I think we've noticed a lot of aggression. I think even just driving on the roads, you can see that there's sort of a recklessness, a sense of, well, we don't know when the second wave is coming, so we don't know how to even behave ourselves. So there's really a need to come back to understanding human behavior, but also looking at the symptoms, because often we will miss when someone is depressed and they will resort to taking their own life, and we didn't see any of the symptoms. So there's a lot of coping mechanisms we're needing to almost relearn, but they're different. They're not what they have been. It's like we're in a very new terrain now. So it's coming back to a healthy rhythm, but in a new environment completely.
And how do you think, I mean, how long does that process take to find that rhythm of overcoming?
So the brain will take about 21 days to form a new habit. But your digestion and the way that you eat will take at least 3 months. So it's not a quick fix. It's almost like we have to do a cleanse, physically, emotionally, and also spiritually, and then re-enter some kind of rhythm, that is going to help us to heal, especially in our relationships, because a lot of relationships suffered very badly during this time. And our health has also suffered, because we're really obsessed about not getting sick, but we haven't really focused on staying healthy in terms of the whole being of a human being.
Well, let's go into that now. I mean, what sort of manifestations are there that are happening in terms of disease and illness that have, are there certain things that have become more prevalent because of what we've been going through?
Definitely. So all of your comorbid issues that people were experiencing before, so high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, issues with insulin resistance, so they refer to that as syndrome X. They've all become worse. And it's also because the thinking that we've really been exposed to over the last 6 months has been very fear-driven. So all of us get those jolly updates on the COVID infections. And
you can't get away from it.
No, I mean, you open your phone and there's your greeting for the morning, so we're constantly surrounded by fear. And I think the issue there is, if we had issues before this in our health, they've simply gotten worse unless we've been intentional about dealing with them. So things like multiple chemical sensitivity, where people were maybe a little bit gluten intolerant, now they just can't eat gluten at all. Strange allergies, a lot of doctor's visits for things that are not clear.
Yes. Now, that's a very interesting thing to me in terms of you saying the sort of the advancement of allergies and things like that. Is that a mental and psychological thing that's impacting the body, or is it just a general health thing because we haven't been sort of out and about the way we used to be in terms of being exposed to things that our immunity then gets active against?
Yes.
How does that interplay work?
Well, Michael, I think you've touched on the most important aspects. Firstly, the environment has been negatively affected in terms of our processes that weren't working. So just the water that hasn't been as clean as it would have been, a lot more burning. So there's a much higher dirt count in the air. We've also had a seasonal change, so our pollen count is higher. But internally, within the physiology of the human body, we're producing more cortisol. And cortisol produces histamine in the body. And so we are actually more allergic to just everything. And then there's also been the seclusion, being stuck in buildings without circulating air, not enough sunshine, and vitamin D is actually so important for your immune system and your body's ability to fight pathogens. So we're seeing an all-around cycle that we've kind of made for ourselves to try and avoid a certain virus. We've actually really been negatively affected in other ways.
Now let's go back to the post-traumatic stress side of that. The cortisol that's been coursing through our bodies. How do we bring that down? How do we kind of, I imagine also people are very triggered by little things that will make them far more stressed than they normally would have been. How do we start to manage that?
So Michael, it's such a good question, and interestingly enough, in any health modality, the number one factor that we need to deal with is stress. And stress is motivating and paralyzing. So we first just need to understand what is a positive stressor in our lives. For example, if you're finishing a course and you're studying, it's a good thing that you have a deadline. You have an exam coming up, you have a due date for when things need to be submitted. But then you have paralyzing stress, where it just stops you from doing anything positive. And that's a negative thought cycle that says, I can't do it, this is too much, I'm going to die. Very much that thought. And then ancient civilizations spoke very strongly about cleansing. So if you can just do a healthy cleanse to reduce the cortisol levels and clean the body, you'll immediately notice a difference and an improvement, in your overall health.
What would you say would be a cleanse that people should maybe think about doing at this time?
So Michael, very, very simple. You avoid the pale poisons.
What are the pale poisons?
So the pale poisons are your processed grains, your white grains, anything that's been processed, your unfermented dairy, so something that isn't like a yogurt or a kefir, which some of our viewers may have heard of, and then obviously your sugar, your processed sugars. So cut those out. Be brutal, cut them out, and then focus on getting your fresh fruit and vegetables, starting the day with a very clean protein and vegetables, and just being as clean in your eating as you can. If you cut out those three, your eating's going to be very clean anyway. But focus on getting a lot of water, especially herbal infused water. There's lots of really good herbs for your liver, especially milk thistle, rosemary, lavender is also a calmative. And then being aware that when you're cleansing, your body needs more time to sleep and rest. So you need more sunshine. You almost need to take like a little break. Even though you're working, just take a break. Involve yourself in nurturing activities and avoid the negative spaces. There
are a number of people in this pandemic period who have lost their jobs. That can be really traumatic for somebody. How do you sort of encourage people to just pick themselves up again and continue, knowing that it's not the end of the world?
Well, I love the quote that said, you never only have two choices, you have three or more options. And I think the issue with feeling like you've lost your job is that you feel you've lost your life. And I would say turn a tragedy into an opportunity and come back to what actually makes you tick. So we need to re-engage with the why of our lives. Why am I here? What do I really want to do? Because a job is just a means for the purpose of your life. It's not the means. So for a lot of South Africans, we've been stuck in work that we don't enjoy. We've really not grown in our environments. And now's the time to sit back and to do some self-work and to figure out, why am I here? What do I want to do? Because entrepreneurship is actually the solution in a country where the formal economy cannot support the population. So take something as horrible as losing your job and turn it into an exercise of self-discovery.
Absolutely. I mean, out of difficulty, something great could flourish from that.
Yes.
For somebody sitting at home watching this and saying, sure, maybe that is me. Maybe I'm suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. Is there a fundamental something that they need to just kickstart getting out of this sort of space of trauma?
Yes. Michael, with the risk of sounding a bit sentimental, I'm going to use one word, and that's love. It's getting back to a place where you love yourself and you understand that you are a precious human being and that your life has got a purpose and a meaning, and that you start to receive love from others and you also start to give love. So a very nice thing to do would be to volunteer wherever you are passionate about, at the SPCA, at an orphanage, at a foster home, because we found that with depression, people who volunteer and they help others are far less prone to suicidal thoughts.
Oh, okay.
So yes, I'm going to sound very strange, but start with love.
But it's meaningful as well. I think people need to recognize that in life, that there's a meaning beyond your job. It doesn't define you. You know, you can find it in other things.
Yes, you can.
Well, Charlotte, thank you so much for sharing some insight. I think it's really valuable that we've been able to have this discussion.